How's it going, everyone? Pierce here, and I am here in Ableton making up a new song. So a couple days ago, I made like a riff with accompanied with a bass line and a drum track, and I was just kind of brainstorming over like how I could make it into a song. And I also thought like, why not maybe make a video, just a little like tutorial as to how my workflow goes when I'm making these songs. I am once again using Ableton. I'm using the ninth edition, so I think I'm like 2 years behind right now as far as the version I'm using. But generally, like the way I make these songs, any version of Ableton that you use should work if you're looking to kind of learn how to use it, how to arrange tracks. What I'm going to be using are all pre-recorded tracks. I am also going to be doing some recording, some live recording with my guitar for like an intro section of this song. So it's not really a beat making tutorial, it's more of an arranging, mixing, and mastering tutorial. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So for this, again, I mentioned I had a guitar track, a bass line, guitar track, bass line, and drum track. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay all those down right now. And I've got everything kind of set up as I want it. My BPM is set up to 76, as you can see at the top left here. So my BPM is perfect. That's exactly what it should be for this track. And let's go ahead. You just saw here, I just dragged in and layered the tracks. So let's listen to what we have. Ooh. Okay. So something's actually wrong here. So Ableton thinks that the track is a different BPM from what I have here. It's not though. That's why it sounds all warped and like slowed down. I don't know, like you don't know what it actually is supposed to sound like, so you may not have heard it, but you'll hear a difference after I change it. So what I'm gonna do is like double click the sound, and I'm just gonna click this warp button here, and that will go ahead and fix the track to make it sound normal. So I'm just gonna do that with all these. Again, I double click them and press warp, and then there we go. Awesome. So that's what we have. It's kind of like a loop sort of track here, but I'm gonna make it into a full-fledged song. So one thing that I had planned out beforehand is I kind of came up with a little intro sequence. So I'm gonna go ahead and record that live here. As you just saw, I just highlighted all my stuff and just dragged it back. You may have also saw I like did a little zooming. To do that, you just got to grab this little bar at the top of your timeline, drag it over like left and right. We'll zoom it in and out. So let's go ahead and set ourselves up to record. So again, I have my guitar here, and I've got the riff in mind that I want to record. Again, it's going to be a small intro sequence. So this is how we record. So my settings, first of all, let's go into our settings. So on PC, yes, I'm using the PC to work Ableton. I should be on the Mac. But on PC, you will want to press Control, comma. That will bring up your settings. And I'm automatically in my audio settings. On Mac, I'm guessing it'd be Command, comma. But yeah, so by default, it puts me in my audio settings. You might end up somewhere else. Just make sure you're in audio for this particular thing I'm about to show. So in order for us to record, we got to make sure our recording device is in. So I'm recording off of basically a loop mixer called the RC505. And I could see here that it's selected as my input. So I don't need to do anything. In your case, you might be on anything else. Just make sure you're connected to the audio source off which you want to record. I already am, so that's great. However, that's not the end of it. We also need to arm a track to record. So in order to record on one of these tracks, it has to be armed. What arming means is it's basically like you're telling that track that that's the track that's going to record. So if I go ahead and press this, then this track here is armed to record now. So if I press record, it will only record on this track. You know, whatever. If I click on this one, and you could hear my voice repeating because this one is monitoring my voice. And yeah, again, you could click any of them. If you hold down Control, you could get multiple. And again, my voice was there twice. However, since it is going to be kind of a separate part of the song, it's like an intro, I'm actually going to create a new track. So the best way to do that is just click on the track that's closest to where you want to put the new one. So I want to put mine around here. So I'm just going to right click and by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I'm in arrangement view right now. So this is arrangement view. This is session view. For my workflow, I work with arrangement view like 80% of the time. So I'm going to do most of this here. And again, how to add a track. So I'm going to right click this track because I want my new track next to it and just click insert audio track. And there you go. So now we have an empty track. However, I'm going to drag mine above this one because this is going to have the very first part of the song. So why not put it on top, right? Got to have a little OCD every now and then. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead without further ado. You won't be able to see my guitar too well, but I promise you I am playing. I have a capo on the 2nd fret for my riff, kind of a couple bar chords, got an A and an E. So let's go ahead and record. Just want to make sure our metronome will respond. Perfect. So it is a slower beat song. Again, it's at like 76 BPM. And yeah, so I'm going to arm this track because that's the one that we want to record. And yeah, it shouldn't be too much fuss. Guitar seems to be working, so let's go for it. Alright, so that's the general idea that I was kind of going for an intro sequence. So, sorry, I kind of did that real quick. So as you saw, like, I recorded all this extra fuss that I'm not going to really want in my song. So I just went to the end of the recording. As you can see, my cursor will change to this little, like, whatever thingy. So you just click it there, drag it. Drag it to wherever you want to end the recording. I think that's about where. So, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and take this and drag it back right after. And one thing you might notice here is the waveforms on this audio are way larger than the waveforms here, so we're obviously going to have some volume issues, but that's fine, we'll get to that. So let's just listen to it for now. So that's a general idea. Again, like I said, the volume is like way off. But yeah, so I kind of just want the guitar to do like that riff and then, you know, just do like one measure of it and then go into the full band instrumentation, whatever. But before I do that, because it's like kind of severely bad, I'm just going to go ahead and raise the volumes here so that they a little more match, obviously, this one. You could tell I recorded, oops. You could tell the way I recorded these were like completely different. Oh, and also, I didn't even realize I have like an extra audio track here I don't even need. I could have just used that for this one. But I'm just going to remove it, right click, and press delete because there's nothing there. But yeah, so let's see now like what the difference is because I just turned up these volumes. In case you didn't notice, I just raised these numbers. The highest it will let you go over here is 6. So that's the highest you could raise the volume without using other methods. we might actually have to do that. But yeah, let's listen to it. So let's just go from like the middle. Much better, much better. So the thing is, like, volume isn't the only thing that measures my level of satisfaction with the sound. I'm going to be laying down EQs on all of these as well. So I suppose we could start EQing these sounds. Since they're a little bit quieter, I'll just mess with those first. And so I'll just give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm going for. So what I'm about to show you is actually easier to see through session view. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to session view. And so you can see this is basically our mixer on Ableton, and it has all of our levels. Right, so if I play it, you can see the specific levels that everything is playing at. The main thing, though, that I'm looking at is our master here. So the master shows the volume of the whole track, not just one track, or one individual track. It shows us our whole song, I should say, the volume. And where I like my volume to be is kind of around between the 12 and the 0 here. I never really like any of my sounds to be under the 12 and above the 0, especially not above the 0, because that means that your sound is going to distort. So make sure that you never kind of go in the red there. But yeah, so let's see again where we're at. Yeah, so you can see generally our average is kind of right below the 12. Like our snare hits are bringing us close to the 0. I hope you could hear me. Our snare hits are bringing us close to the 0, but I could hear that the guitars and the bass aren't really getting us anywhere above that 12. So that's a bit of a problem for me. So I guess we could just stick with session V here. And by the way, I hope I actually showed you how to switch between the views. So it's right over here, just on the side, so I could go from arrangement to session. But because I'm just like flicking knobs and volumes and stuff like that, I'm just going to use session view. So what I'm going to do to raise the volumes is actually solo each track, just so I could see specifically what volume this guitar is getting to. So you can see it's way too low. Like, it's hardly even getting to the 12, so that's a problem for me. So there's many ways that you can increase your volume beyond just the normal way I showed before. So what I'm going to do here is go into my effects. So by default, you'll have this window open here with all kinds of stuff. Again, if you're into beat making, I would get a lot more deeper into this, but of course we're just doing like mostly arranging and mastering right now. So where a lot of the mixing and mastering effects take place is in audio effects. And you have a whole bunch of stuff here. I'm pretty sure everything in here comes with the standard Ableton, so you have a whole lot of great stuff. Where I like to go is to the EQ8 section. So basically it's an EQ that allows you to change the highs, the mids, and lows, but you have 8 ways to control it. So it just gives you like a very high amount of control. What I like to use is the stereo effect. So basically it allows you to, like I said, like the sound comprises of lows, highs, and mids. It allows you to kind of put the highs in certain parts of the headphones. You know, the lows will probably be on the right side. It kind of pans out the different parts of the sound. It gives it a much more professional, less monotone sound. Not only that, but it also lets you control the volume. So I actually like to put down 2 stereo effects because it gives me the best control for left and right, not just left or right, as far as which ear certain things are playing in. So here it is with these 2 stereo effects. Here's how it's going to sound now. So I don't know if you could hear what I'm hearing. Let's go ahead and disable the stereo effect. So you could probably hear that when I turn that on, it seems like it's muffling a lot of the sound, which obviously we don't want. When I turned it off, it actually seemed to be a little nicer sounding, actually. But worry not, again, the main purpose of this is for me to turn up the volume. So I'm going to go ahead and correct that little issue where it sounds like sound is being held back. What you want to do on this effect is reduce the scale. So what I like to do is set one of them to scale 50% and the other to scale negative 50%. So you could already hear it's like worlds different, right? Like here. That's where we were at before. And now we're sounding pretty great. It's coming through both headphones quite equally, which for this sound I actually kind of want. So that's the first part of what we got to do. You'll notice under scale there's gain. So that's where we turn up the volume. So I'm going to turn them up quite a bit. I'm probably going to turn them both up to around the 4 decibel point. Now let's hear it. So you can see our volume is just like getting way better. In fact, you see that red? That means it's distorting. So it's actually too loud now. But hey, that's great. We're definitely not way too quiet. Let's try one more time. Perfect. So it's, you know, it still drops a little bit below the 0, but we're well above the 12 at this point on our meter, so I'm quite happy with where we're at. Yeah, so let's move on to the bass. So the bass is also very quiet, below the 12, just peaks above the 12. So what I do, honestly, there's actually a couple things we could do. What what I was about to do was gonna take the stereo effects and put them on the bass. That's great. However, it is bass, right? So you might want to put something that's more for bass on it instead of just using your guitar effect. So I go, you might notice this same thing here where all the effects are. There's a search here. So instead of having gone through all those folders and picked stereo effect, I could have just typed in stereo. For now, because I'm looking for a bass EQ effect, I'm going to type in bass. And so under EQ8 and under instrument, there's an E bass modern. And I really like this sound to adjust the EQ for my bass lines. Again, it allows you, it has a gain and scale. We won't be adjusting the scale for this one because it doesn't mess with it too much. Like, here's how it sounds. You can see I'm disabling and re-enabling it. And there's hardly a difference. So that's cool. So the main thing that we want to do again is raise the volume. So let's go ahead and do that. So raise it to like 5-ish. Yeah, now we're at a much more comfortable place. However, I would also maybe like to adjust the sound a little bit here. So I'm actually going to mess around with the EQ. And so basically, if you see this little graph here, it might look like some sciencey, crazy thing, but it's really not a big deal. So the left side of this graph is going to be the bass heavier part. So you could see that all these numbers here, I could drag them around and put them wherever I want. I could literally put them anywhere. So if I were to take these points here and kind of drag them toward the left side of this graph, it would give us a much bass heavier sound. If I were to drag these and put them more toward the right side, it'll reduce the bass quite significantly. So let me go ahead and demonstrate. Yeah, so you can see that one really aggravated it. Got the bass like extremely aggressive. Right? And if I were to go, it virtually gets rid of the sound, right? Because it is a bass. So obviously that is not what we're going for. Oops. I just pressed Control Z to undo and Control Y to redo, just so you know. Yeah, so our volume's looking great. I'm actually probably going to turn down the mixer a little bit just so it doesn't peak above the threshold. Great, so let's go ahead and preview our guitar and bass together now that we EQ'd them both. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. So actually, yeah, so you know what, let's go ahead and we're going to do the drums real quick. Oh, I know what's going on. Just gotta fast forward. So actually here, I'll show you how to do something now. So you see this little thing here, right above the timeline, this little guy. So that is our kind of loop setter. We could set loops with this thing. So what you want to do is just drag it as long as you want the loop to go. So I just kind of want to listen to this part. I don't really need this part here because it has no drums, and I'm listening to the drums right now. So I set this over the drums, the loop thingy. And then this is very important. You want to click this symbol up here. Click that, it'll turn yellow. And now it will loop constantly. And again. Yeah, great. So we're soloing our drums. And our volume for the drums is actually not terribly bad. Let's hear how it all sounds. Yeah, so I know what I want here. So for me, the issue isn't really the volume. It's more that the sound of the drums aren't really penetrating through the other instruments as well as I would like it to. It's kind of like the bass, the kick drum is a little flat. It kind of gets buried beneath the rubble of the rest of the sounds, if you will. Try one more time. So again, the volume is cool, but I would like certain aspects of the sound to pop more. So Ableton is absolutely awesome with these EQ settings. There's something else that they have for drums, and it's literally an EQ for each part of the drum set. So I could actually just show you what it looks like here instead of just searching for it. So again, it's EQ8 instrument. Oh dang, actually, it's probably under drums. Yeah, drum. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So EQ8 drums, and you have cymbal EQ. You have a floor tom EQ. You have hat. You have kick. You got all the EQs in the world for every part of the drum set. So for me, what stood out the most is that the kick wasn't really coming through. So I'm going to actually put a kick EQ on my drums here. Yeah, so I'm just kind of turning it off and on, just to hear what the difference is without it, with it, to see what I should do. So I could hear just like the ever so slightest increase of punchiness when I re-enable it, but I want it more. Like I want the bass to kind of really penetrate through. So I'm going to make the bass a little heavier here. I'm going to reduce the lows a little bit. Okay, so we're clipping just ever so slightly, so I'm just going to reduce the mixer. So yeah, I just want to kind of mention real quick, so there's so many ways you could change volume. So you saw me originally do it in arrangement view, using these numbers here. Using these numbers and using this knob is the same thing, just so you know. So whenever you see me changing it over here, it's the same as me changing it over here in arrangement view. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So I'm just turning down the volume on the drums just ever so slightly because it was clipping a tiny little bit. Clipping, by the way, is the kind of professional term for when the audio distorts and you go into the red. So now we're kind of way below the red. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. And sometimes the ever so slightest bit of clipping isn't the worst thing in the world. But yeah, it's sounding great now. Let's listen to the whole thing. So I'm just going to fine tune a few things here. I'm just turning down the instruments a little bit. And we are clipping here. There's definitely a little bit of that going on. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. There might be a little bit of clipping here and there. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, if it just clips, like if it just gets up there, there's a certain point to where it's just unacceptable. Like, it will just distort like crazy. But if it's just getting to the red, it's not the biggest deal in the world, and that seems to be where we're at right now. It seems to just clip into the red just a tiny bit, but I think that's okay for where we're at so far. So yeah, let's hear everything that we have here. Yeah, let's take a look. Actually, you know what? Where are we at for volume? Let's see. Yeah, so I'm actually going to turn that up. Actually, you know what? I'm going to EQ that guitar real quick. So again, so we're going to go to EQ8, instrument, and there's electric guitar EQ. So I'm going to up the lows. Maybe keep the mids around where they're at. Okay, great. So I could hear that it's clipping a little bit. All right, so cool. So that's nicely EQ'd. So yeah, actually, how about we go ahead now and listen to the whole thing. see we are getting into the red a little bit, but I'm not hearing anything too bad. Okay, fantastic. So far so good. One thing that I already know we need is reverb. So there's another rule of thumb of mine. So I mentioned again, you know, the master, it can't go too much into clipping and stuff like that. Another rule of thumb is every single solitary thing in your song should have some reverb. It doesn't even have to be like hardly noticeable, but you want to get rid of as much flatness as possible from your instruments. So one great technique of doing so is putting an EQ on your master. I actually like to EQ everything, including the master, but when you put the EQ on the master, again, the master is in charge of the entire song, of all the tracks on your song. So if I put if I put a reverb on the master, everything will be reverbed. But because everything will be reverbed, I don't want to put a really strong reverb, right? Because if everything is going to be affected by this reverb, I still want some flexibility. Oops, I think I dropped my pick. Yeah, I don't know where it is. Yeah, but let's go ahead and I'm going to do that. Just add this guitar room reverb to the master. So now if I play it, right? So obviously it's like hardly audible at this point, because anytime in Ableton, if you ever put reverb on anything, it puts the effect up to 100% by default. So if I change that to a nice like 46%. There we go. Right, 0%. So I'll chill with about 30% there. Again, it will be a little on the lower side because it's on the master, right? So everything is going to have this. However, I did notice one thing in particular I wanted to have a little extra reverb, and it's the opening guitar, because the contrast between the sound of the guitar at the beginning and the guitar during the actual song is a little too different. Like, it's nothing terrible or anything like that, but I would maybe like to put a guitar room reverb on this particular track so it could be a little more intense. I'm thinking of doing some other stuff here. So I want to give this a little bit more of a studio kind of sound at the beginning. So I'm actually going to duplicate by right-clicking and press duplicate, or you could click on the track and press Control D to duplicate the track. And I'm going to reduce the guitar room sound on the second track here, and also reduce the volume because it will be really loud because there's two of them on top of each other. And I'm gonna pan the second track using this meter. Sorry, I'm looking up like this because I have a light and I have to like look over the light. But yeah, you see this little meter here that has C? That means that it's panned to the center right now. So if I were to do this, like here, just check it out. Here, I'll just mute this. So we're all the way to the left, center, and now to the right. So just for now, I just want this in the center. I'm going to turn this one here quite a ways to the right. Yeah, so I'm hearing a little bit more sound now. Yeah, so I don't know if you saw what I just did there, but I did a little trick to get it to sound even a little more stereo-like. What I did is I moved the new track literally just one tiny little block in front. So I have grid snap on, so it will snap to the grid accordingly as I do so. So as you can see here, I moved it up just a little bit. And actually, something is bothering me a little bit here. There's a little too much nothing going on at the beginning of this track. I'm just going to get rid of that, actually. Which will then... should I start here? Okay, that's good. So I'm just going to move that back with the adjustment, because that's just kind of weird. And I'm going to have to move everything else back as well. Oh, actually, no. Yeah, no, it's good. Okay, great. Sorry, I just made a little adjustment there. So yeah, now we got a little bit more of a studio sound going. Yeah, and there's even more that we could do, but I'm gonna keep it slightly simple. In fact, I don't even think I'm gonna make this whole song on this video. There's a long way to go here. As you can see, we're like nowhere. I've pretty much just done a bunch of EQing and stuff. But yeah, let's now go ahead and listen to the whole thing. Wrong volume. Yeah, so I actually want a little more reverb on that beginning guitar. However, I want a different type of reverb. I'm actually going to go for a hall reverb. I kind of want a concert hall reverb. Let me go ahead and try that. So I'm just letting the instrument breathe after it comes in. There's no hurt in doing that, and it kind of sounds more natural. So you could actually hear the reverberation of the strings after I strum the chord. Yeah, so there you have it. Honestly, like, I don't know what more we need to show here. I'm just going to keep workshopping ideas as for how we can extend the length of this song, kind of add some variation. We'll probably add some parts to this tutorial eventually, but for whoever stuck by, I appreciate you having watched this. We'll do a few more of these in the future, just showing you kind of our workflow in Ableton. I have a boatload of plugins that I could use to enhance this even further. We'll get into that later on. I feel like this has gone on long enough here. And yeah, just thought I would show off a little bit of the process here. Thanks again for watching, and yeah, we'll be back soon. Take care.